We are now well past the holiday season. Gifts have been given and received, and later at what we now call Epiphany, the wise men or magi presented their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gifting inheres in our celebration of Christmas. But what does it really mean, to give and to receive a gift? This Christmas, the question arose in our house when Sarah received a box from one of her sisters. There is, of course, a backstory. Sarah is one of 4 sisters, and for a number of years, every year they have drawn names and exchanged gifts with each other. However, one of the sisters had participated by making donations to a local charity in a sister's name, though she had not actually sent a physical present. This year, however, she sent the aforementioned box to Sarah, whose name her sister had drawn. When Sarah opened the large cardboard box, she was shocked to see 4 beautifully wrapped packages. Sarah immediately exclaimed, "Oh no, what has she done? I only sent her socks." The situation is familiar to all of us: asymmetry in gift giving. We often experience the exchange of unequal gifts. Gift giving and receiving is a tricky business. The giver of the more expensive or special gift has created something of an advantage over the one who receives it. And the giver of the less expensive gift is confronted with the question, what can I give her to compensate, to equal the score? Sociologists have studied this phenomenon. In a classic work appropriately entitled The Gift, the French scholar Marcel Mauss examined the way the exchange of gifts works in many cultures. One thing he discovered was the way the giving of a gift was often an exercise of power or the granting of a favor. It created an obligation on the part of the recipient. If the receiver reciprocated in some way, a social bond was created between the two, the gift giver and the gift receiver. Or the exchange of gifts could reinforce an already existing social bond. However, if there were no exchange or an inappropriate exchange of gifts, the relationship between the two parties could be jeopardized or threatened, or even destroyed. After the holidays were over, Sarah and I talked about our experience in gift giving and receiving this year, about the variety of gifts we had given and received, about the thought that went into certain gifts, about how some were more meaningful or that some were a big surprise. Some were expensive, some inexpensive, some purchased, some handmade, some professionally wrapped, some in a holiday bag, the big ones, some the right size, some almost so, some edible, some almost so. Some soon to be broken, others that would outlast the recipient. We had experienced diversity in gift receiving, a diversity due in large part to the differences in the people who had given us gifts. The bottom line of our gifting experience was, as St. Paul wrote, there are varieties of gifts. When St. Paul wrote about life in the church in ancient Corinth, he referred to two different kinds of variety. First, there are varieties of activities in churches. Paul listed some of those in the first century church: the gift of tongues, the gift of wisdom, many of which are not present now, especially the gift of tongues. But we can make our own list based on the activities that are essential for the life of a church like Plymouth: worship, administration, evangelism, pastoral care, outreach and mission, education, maintenance of buildings and grounds. These are the most obvious of the so-called activity. Lots of stuff has to get done in order for a church like Plymouth to carry out its mission. There are varieties of activities. But second, there are varieties of gifts. And here we return to the complicated world of gift giving and receiving. Paul was not talking about the gifts under a Christmas tree or the gifts that we receive from each other. He was referring to the gifts that God gives us. The Greek word translated here as gift is tricky. The word Paul uses is charisma. The English word charismatic comes from it. But that word means to our ears something quite different from what Paul had in mind. The Greek word charisma means a gift freely given or a favor bestowed. It's directly related to another Greek word meaning beauty or grace, particularly as personified by the beauty or grace of an ancient Greek god or goddess. So imagine an ancient, handsome Greek god or a beautiful Greek goddess stretching out her hand and offering you a drink of water from a bubbling fountain. That would be a charisma. And there's no easy way for the recipient to exchange anything with the giver of that gift. According to Paul, our God-given gifts are allotted to each one individually as the Spirit chooses. Paul here is a realist. He knows that each of us have different abilities based on the gifts that we have been given. Think of the various gifts and abilities present at Plymouth. The ability to plan and lead worship. The ability to sing or play an instrument. The ability to chair a committee. The ability to serve as a responsible committee member. The ability to teach. The ability to enable healing of various personal and communal sorts. The ability to analyze and address social issues. The ability to orchestrate and clean up after a potluck. Technological prowess. Physical strength and practical know-how on behalf of our buildings and grounds. The capacity to manage personnel issues. The list could go on and on. Few of us have the ability to choose the gift that God has given to us. Put another way, we may not be able to choose what we're good at. I am no longer supposed to shovel snow, thank God. Though it became necessary yesterday. I could never have been a good bookkeeper or an organist, but I have been able to sit on and chair a committee now and then, and for a little while I've been here helping in the pulpit. The bottom line, Paul believes that everyone here has been inspirited or inspired individually with a gift that has been specially chosen for each of us. Amid this variety of special gifts, there are two common elements, according to Paul: the giver, who is, of course, God, and the goal, which for Paul is the common good. Paul has often been thought to speak just about the common good inside the church, but I think that's inappropriate. The common good clearly includes all people and all of creation. So the gift that we have received as individuals is to be used for the common good in its broadest sense, both inside and outside the boundaries of the church. So today, as we think about ourselves as having received gifts from God, how do we respond? Like Sarah with her gift from Rachel, "Oh no, what have you done?" Probably not. So what do? We can gather around a tree, not a Christmas tree, but something made from a tree, a bare and wooden cross. And as we share in the sacrament of communion, we have the opportunity to think about the priceless gifts we have received. The gift that all Christians affirm, the gift of Jesus, who brought us a vision of a new way of life, and the individual gift that God has given to each one of us. So if our French sociology professor were here today, conducting a sociological study, he might ask, how are you going to respond to the gifts that God has given you? Write a thank you note? Probably not. Feel an obligation? If so, what might it be? And if St. Paul were hanging around in the background, as he very well might be, he might whisper in our ears, do something with your gift. Don't just put it on a shelf and forget about it. What is your gift, and how can it be used for the common good? Amen.